Well, hello, friends. Ryan here, professional life coach, Enneagram educator, and your host for this episode of Fourward Bound with the Enneagram. You know, the Enneagram is a powerful tool for building understanding, compassion, and achieving growth in our lives, grounded by 9 types or ways that our personalities and egos are structured. The conversations in this podcast are designed to illuminate the Enneagram in action by hearing directly from individuals who are working with the Enneagram and their type in their lives. The views reflected in these conversations are personal, and so what one person shares may not be true for all others who identify as their particular Enneagram type, and that's okay. My encouragement: listen with compassionate curiosity. Thanks for being with us. So today we are delving into the world of Enneagram Type 8, often referred to as the protector. And my guest today is my friend Maile, who identifies as an Enneagram Type 8. I want to welcome Maile.
Thank you so much. And yes, I am definitely an 8. Well, there was some questioning in the beginning, but no, it's
okay.
An 8.
Okay, good. Well, we'll get into some of that questioning as we get into the conversation. Maile, I want to really quickly get into that conversation with you and about your experience as a Type 8. But if it's okay with you, I'd first like to just start by offering our friends who are listening a little bit of an overview and grounding of the type. Does that work for you?
That works for me just fine, because I might need a refresher and be like, oh.
Let's take a look together at Enneagram Type 8, often referred to as the protector. We start by looking at the instinctual center of intelligence for the type. This could be heart, head, or body. As a body center type, the Type 8 leads with this sense of strength and ability, a physical embodiment that is instinctual, arising from their gut center. For Type 8, this is about the core of the body as a fueling station for action and generating results. The protector embodies a worldview that is about meeting the world head on. They see the world as a tough place, the unfolding of events, people, and situations as something that could take away our power or create unfavorable conditions. Type 8s often wrestle with feelings around guilt, this notion that something is fundamentally wrong, and that someone or something is to blame. A belief system develops for Type 8, the sense that by showing and exerting strength and power, protection of self and others can be assured, and that positive regard will follow. That by personally taking action, whatever is missing can be restored, or whatever is wrong or about to go wrong can be resolved. And so 2 primary driving attentions emerge for Type 8. We'll refer to those as anger and lust. First, let's look at anger. This is not necessarily an externally focused or aggressive position, but rather this heated internal response at whatever the protector perceives needs to be addressed. For the protector, this is often about injustice, unfairness, deceit, or manipulation, either of themselves or others, especially those who are innocent or weak. While they're driven by this internal fire, Type 8s can present in myriad ways, ranging from warm and friendly to direct, intimidating, and confrontational. The results they generate ranging from inspirational justice to personal revenge. And now let's look at lust. In short, it is this notion that the fire never seems to burn out, this insatiable appetite for intensity, stimulation, and power. For Type 8, it is often all or nothing, and the energy can show up as my way or the highway. The protector is drawn to high-impact situations, willing to take bold action to get the desired results. Now we look at what we call the virtue for the type, this highest expression of their potential. Think of it as keeping all the gifts for the type, and then also uncovering or remembering a piece of truth that has been forgotten along the way. For type 8, we refer to the virtue as innocence, a state of being that is unencumbered by fear, anger, or self-doubt, a quality of open-heartedness, trust even. The work here about becoming vulnerable with their own places of weakness, or even erasing the duality between strong and weak altogether. Type 8s are supported in doing this work by remembering and believing with comfort and confidence the holy truth that all is unfolding in a natural way according to a natural plan, without the need to exert control or strength to fix it. So, I think it's important just to reiterate, this is just a place for us to start.
Right.
Maile, some of this was resonating, other pieces of it may not have. Ultimately, what we really want to turn to is hearing and honoring and prioritizing what your experience is. And I'm just thrilled that you're here today to share some of those insights and your experience.
Well, thank you so much. Actually, you were talking about it, and I'm sitting here shaking my head. I'm like, yeah. And then... you start delving into things, and I'm just kind of like, okay, let me take a step back and let me really analyze this and how I react to things. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of spot on. Yes, that's great. And you're right. As an 8, we do seek out, like you said, we seek maybe not necessarily conflict out, but we do seek that, or we do. There's so much that we can talk about, and we have so little time. And
well, that's all good, all good. So, if you would, maybe let's just start. I'd love to hear in your words, what is your favorite thing about being a type 8?
Gosh, I love the fact that the type 8 is called the protector. That right there just resonates so much with me. I think it's that word. It gives protector. It's strength, but it's also compassion and gentleness. It's masculine word, but also a feminine word. It is just so much to it. And that's, I think what I love about that is that it's known as protector. And then as I look back on my actions or some of the things that I get myself involved with, both, occupationally or socially, it's kind of almost around that title of protector. Yeah. Now, some people might think, oh, protection all the time. And what I notice about myself as an 8 is I do about 80% protection for others, those that are closest to me or my acquaintances. I will protect them, versus 20% I protect myself. Okay. I feel like I take a step back when it comes to that, and it's more of a more passively protection of self versus when I do it for others. Yeah.
I'm curious. I love this percentage, way of thinking about things. And you mentioned earlier that these terms strength and compassion both really resonate as you think about your role and your identity as a protector. Mm-hmm. What would you say is the breakdown as you're thinking about strength and compassion? How do those things play out for you?
So with strength, I look at it in so many different ways. It's not necessarily physical strength, like being able to pick up a car if somebody's trapped under it. Like that. We have so many different versions of strength, but it's more of the internal strength of not giving up, perseverance, of continuing through, of supporting that friend. For example, we all have those friends who, they're in a romantic relationship and they break up, which it is a good breakup. And you're like, oh my gosh, you need to stay away from that person. They end up going back to them and you're just like, okay, I'm going to be strong for you because you are making the wrong decision, but that's okay. It's your decision. But then when it comes to compassion, it's compassion for myself. I'm giving myself more grace, more compassion. Maybe I do more compassion for myself than for others, because it is I can only give you so much strength, and I'm going to stand behind you and I'm going to back you up. I'm just being stupid. And my
Okay. Yeah. So there's a limit to the compassion.
There's a limit just because when I give compassion, I give my heart.
Yeah.
So I can only give so much of my heart before I have.
How limited is the like strength side of this equation?
Oh, I can go on and on. Like if you are one of my besties, like I will be there to the point where it's annoying, where I'm like, why are you doing this? Do you remember this? Did you remember what you told me? And it can be very off-putting for some people because they want to wash their hands of it and, it's water under the bridge. And I'm like, no. Do you remember what they did? Do you remember what this? Do you remember how they make you feel? Now, I will say that when that mistake has been repeated, I'm not there shaking my finger saying, I told you so. Mm-hmm. It is okay, we're going to get through this. Let's move forward. And again, it goes back to the action. What items can we do to help you in this situation? Again, whether that's a breakup or you thinking about quitting your job or starting something new, it is let's look logically. What steps can we take to move forward in what I, as an 8, would consider a good direction? Yeah.
And I hear this like a real sense of like what the right decision is for folks to make. But then there being this enormous amount of strength that comes out of that, and this almost like will for folks to do the right thing. But for folks who you care about, what I'm also hearing is like if they choose a different path, there's not a holding on to that like a grudge. It's like, okay, bam, then I'm right here with you. And it's like, what are we going to do about it next?
Exactly. Nice. And that's where I feel like my inner strength comes in. It is that I'm going to be here for you, regardless of the mistakes you make. Now, granted, there are times when, and very few, where I have had to cut friends because it was not a healthy situation for either one of us.
Okay.
And so I have to say, again, it's very rare, like few and far between, but it is I need to let you go and experience this on your own. Yeah. But I'm still here for you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be as involved as I normally would. Because I can't do this myself.
Yeah. Can I offer one of the like things that I feel when I'm around an 8? I'm just curious like how you might respond to it whenever I say it. Mm-hmm. I feel so safe. Like I don't want to overuse the word protected, which I just about did, but it's like, I want an 8 on my side. Mm-hmm. How does that land on you?
I love it. For me, that's like the probably biggest compliment somebody could tell me is, I like being around you. You give me a sense of comfort. You give me a sense of almost as like you give me a sense of place as well. You give me a safe space to be in. And I think that's why when people start delving into the Enneagram and they look at their closest friends, they're going to find somebody who is an 8. Whether or not, this will probably go down later in the podcast, if they're graded 8 or not.
Okay.
Things change when you're in that as an 8 and you're disintegrated and really, really low. But I would honestly say I would be shocked for people with their close group of friends not to have an 8 in there.
So let's pivot just a little bit. I mean, we've talked a lot about gifts for the 8, I think, and which are numerous. Like there's so many wonderful, beautiful ways that 8s show up in the world and make it truly a better place. What have been some of your biggest opportunities to develop as an 8?
Oh gosh, I feel like there's so many, especially after going through an Enneagram class, delving into and doing some soul searching. I mean, it's wonderful because people are like, yeah, I took this test online, and I'm like, that's great. But until you really are honest with yourself and you really delve into it, you can't assume you are one thing or another. So for me, after I took that class and I recognized, accepted, and really started understanding how I operate in the world and how the world operates around me, I was able to take that and utilize that. I've done so many things where I feel that have helped out. For example, I worked for several years with a teen leadership development program, educating teens on leadership skills, teaching them leadership skills and being with them for that. I was a college chapter director for one of my sorority chapters for 8 years. I had a group of, between 30 and 40 women, and I helped with the executive board. I currently captain 4 tennis teams. I feel like I'm going off track from that question.
No, because what I hear you say. Yeah, what I hear you saying is like you developed this understanding of things that are your natural gifts, and you intentionally seek out ways to utilize them and apply them. Is that?
Yeah. I would definitely say that's accurate. It's a recognition of this, and then it's going out, and not necessarily, I want to say, sharing gift. It's more of let me utilize what I've learned about myself, my best self, and sharing that with others and helping them develop themselves as well.
What about on the flip side? Like maybe we call it the underbelly, but in the intro, I talked a little bit about this idea of lust and anger as being these addictions that sometimes show up for the 8. I'm curious how those things resonate for you, and if you've looked for ways to really develop in those areas.
So it's funny because I actually wrote that down about like the 2 driving factors, which is lust and anger.
Yeah.
So lust, and I know it's going out for those experiences. Now, the positive side is, I get to share myself with the world because I'm like, let me put it out there, that lust for adventure, that lust for leadership. But at the same time, that downside of it is I take too much on, my plate overfills, and I'm drowning. But I will never say it's not enough. It kills me to have to be like, I need help raising my hand. I can't do it anymore. So again, the positive side of lust, the negative side of lust.
Yeah. Can we sit with that for just a second, Maile? Like, I'm curious what that experience is for you when you realize I've taken on too much. Like, can you go to a experience where you've had that realization? And I'm really curious.
Actually, I was like there last week.
Oh yeah. So what does it feel like?
It feels like I'm underwater. Last week, I'm going back to an example. Last week, both of my supervisors were out at our annual partners meeting. I was there out of office for both of them. These are 2 very high producing associates. And the Friday before they left, we had meetings. I had individual meetings. I said, okay, what's coming down the pike? Let me prep for next week. And they're like, everything's fine. It shouldn't be too much trouble. It should be relatively quiet. Monday rolls around and I wake up to 125 unread emails in my inbox. I want to do site inspections. I want these contracts for these hotels. I need these CRFs sent out. I need new leads sent out. And I was doing the work of what felt like 4 people. And so when that happened, I powered through the workday. And then the following morning, it was Monday, I had a tennis match that Monday. So, I work typical hours and then I have 30 minutes before I go and I have a tennis match, a competitive tennis match. And I'm having to do lineups and making sure that, if we're the home team, that we're bringing snacks to have fellowship afterwards. And all of this is culminating. So on Tuesday, I sat down early in the morning and I did an action plan.
Okay.
Because like I said, my superiors, I knew what their schedules were like at the partners meeting. I knew they were on limited time and it fell on me to be responsible. Do I have a problem with responsibility? No. Love it. I had a problem with, I felt overwhelmed. I felt there was nobody to help me. So what I did is I wrote a list and I said, okay, here's my checklist. Here are the things that I have to get done. And that alleviated some of that overwhelming feeling, but not a lot, because I had 5 contracts that I had to redline on top of, I have 3 site inspections to get taken care of. And I have all of these things to do. And my biggest fear is disappointing people. I don't want to disappoint anybody. I cringe on that. And So really every single morning I would write down my new updated list of, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm going. These are the action items that I need to take in order for me not to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think it's interesting that like in this sense of overwhelm and being like, what have I gotten myself into? And this list is unreasonably long. What I sense is still it's like, but I'm going to move to action.
Correct.
But it's a structured and like, you know, you've put some planning around it to say, how am I going to accomplish this?
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to some of our other friends on the Enneagram, different types who might be like, I can't do this, I'm backing out, or totally withdraw, or others who may call on some other means of assistance outside of themselves. But what you're really reflecting is this like, I'm overwhelmed, but I can do it. And here's what I'm going to do. And I'm curious, like, I see the affirmative like nod and the smile in that, but I'm really curious, and it doesn't have to be about this particular instance, but just, this idea of this feeling of overwhelm and powering through it nonetheless. Can you touch into like, what is the undergirding emotion? Like, what are you really feeling about all of that?
Almost despair. Almost despair. Yeah. Like if I were to really dig through it and get to that, what are you, it's despair. It is despair of, I can't get this done, or I'm not going to be able to do it in a timely manner. I'm going to, this contract is due today. What do despair. It is despair. And then
can we sit with that for just a minute? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just curious, like you saying out loud, like that there is, because I mean, we talk about this strength, you know, for the 8. And then to hear you say that there is an undergirded emotion that is despair, like what does that feel like even just to say that out loud?
It almost makes me want to cry. Like it is not a fun admitting it. It's not fun at all. It is. I don't like that. And I think it goes back to being an 8. We want to show strength. This is not showing strength.
Yeah.
This is lack of strength in self, and it's not fun. It's honestly, I'm kind of like, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like it. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that, Maile. I think that's, really beautiful insight. So I appreciate your willingness to share that with us. What are some things you think the world misunderstands about the Type 8? Like folks who know a little bit about the Enneagram, I think so many times we turn the Enneagram into a parlor game. It's like we create caricatures of people and put them in a box. I'm curious, like, what do you think folks misunderstand about the Enneagram Type 8?
I would honestly say the impression that might come across is, you know, we want to steal the spotlight, or we are bullies. Or that it is my way or the highway. Okay. Now that whole, it's my way or the highway, I will say that can be a little accurate in certain situations where I'm like, no, we have to do it my way. Like I'm telling you, you have to do it my way.
Well, but when does that happen, Maile? Like when does it become my way or the highway?
When I have allowed another idea to take place and it either is not executed properly or I am just that disintegrated.
Okay. Yeah.
In that bad place where I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. Like almost insubordination, basically.
Yeah. But it's like things get out of control and you're witnessing it happen. And then it's like scar the earth.
Oh my gosh.
No, we're doing it this way.
Yeah. I'm like, no, we've tried it your way. Yeah. Your way hasn't worked. Yeah. Now you are going to do it my way.
Yeah. But I'm hearing you say that's not your normal approach. It's like that's whenever everything has fallen apart.
Correct. That's when everything's fallen apart. That is, it's picking up the pieces. I'll give an example of that where with the club that I'm with right now with tennis, we had this pro and I was watching things. We had this tennis committee and I was watching things just kind of go down the drain. And I'm like, what's happening? Like, here are my suggestions. What's going on? And then thankfully, we were without a pro for a while, and COVID hit, and I took matters into my own hands. And I did, this sounds bad. I did what I wanted to do without asking questions. I said, okay, I'm tired of not having this. We're going to start something, and I'm going to do it by myself, and I'm going to recruit some amazing people, and we're going to do it.
Yeah. What was the result?
Well, we grew that tennis program. It went from me, captaining like 1 or 2 teams, and now I'm captaining 4, and we have a very healthy women's program now. Yeah. Where we're inviting new people. And yeah, I was tired of not having it. So I was like, I watched you guys, and you're not doing anything, or you're doing things that I feel aren't bringing in the right types of people. And so this is what I'm doing. And
the situation that you were in, like your actions were embraced. I mean, folks were like, you've accomplished, it sounds like you did that, and you've accomplished a lot as a result.
Yeah. Yeah. After a while, it's kind of like, I'm done. I'm done being nice. I'm done asking for permission. I'm done to do it.
So I have 2 questions that are like feelings based about this situation. Like, what does it feel like to be at that place of I'm done? Like, what emotion would you associate with I'm done?
Oh, that goes to anger.
It's anger.
So like, again, going back to like lust and anger is that is my first emotion I go to. Okay. Very first emotion, negative emotion that I'll go to.
And where do you feel anger in your body, Maile?
Oh, all over.
All over.
Literally starts at the top of my head, and it just goes down to my toes. Like it is almost like a full, it's just a full being sense of, especially when it's something that I feel that could have been controlled. Yeah.
And like, can you give it a color? Like, what color is that anger?
Oh, like a dark red. Like just
dark red. It's intense.
Very much so. It is very hot, very spicy.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Even, what about a texture for it?
Oh, wow. A texture. I would say it's like a smooth texture.
Okay.
Not rough. It's not bumpy. It is smooth. It is like, if it were to snap your bottom, it would hurt.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I want to pivot just a little bit. You said something earlier about, when I came to recognize and accept my type as an 8. And I'm curious, just what was that process like for you? When you, I understand you were in a class, which maybe was part of what helped you, but like, was there wrestling on this? Was it something that you really easily and quickly embraced? Like, what was your experience?
Yeah. So that experience, thankfully, it was a year-long experience that we were in class. It was funny because as we're going through the Enneagram and we're learning it, I was like, I'm a 2 or I'm an 8. Okay. And so for the longest time, I thought I was a 2. I mean, a lot of those things resonated with me, and I was like, huh. And then a lot of the things with the 8 resonated with me. Mm-hmm. But thankfully, in our class, we had about 10 people, and we actually had almost one of every single type in the class. And I was listening to one of my, my peers that was part of the class, and she is a true 2. And I looked at her and kind of, I was watching and observing, and I'm on the cusp of, I'm a 2, I'm an 8. Mm-hmm. I was observing her, and I was watching her and observe her in the community. And I was like, no, that is not me. Okay. It's not me whatsoever. And then when I
do you remember what it was about the 2 that in the end didn't resonate?
The 2 is the helper. Mm-hmm. So I think it's more of, it was just, I feel like an 8, like when an 8 walks into a room, like when I walk into a room, this sounds horrible and almost specific, but I feel like when I walk into a room, people know if I'm in a good mood or a bad mood. Like that aura that I project out, people feel it. Like, when an 8 walks into a room, whether it's a room full of strangers or it's a room full of friends, it is, nobody is treated differently. You get that same presence of an 8, but it was, I don't remember what it was.
It's okay.
Yeah.
We won't have time to dig into this today, maybe on a future episode, but of course there's a lot of connectivity between the 2 and the 8. And so for the 8, the 2 is actually your growth point. Mm-hmm. And so, there's a lot that would naturally appear really attractive about the 2 to the 8. There's almost a yearning for some of that. Yeah. And vice versa, the 8 becomes the stress point, or sometimes referred to as the disintegration point for the 2. Right. And so there's an interconnected relationship that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. We're almost out of time, but I have one more question for you. Yeah, I know, time flies.
I know.
But I'm curious if someone listening today works with or lives with someone who they think is an 8, what are a few suggestions, maybe 1 or 2 suggestions that you might offer them to make the most of that relationship with that person?
Oh, wow. I would say if you're living or working with an 8, as an 8, like when we're on a high, when everything is going good and life is grand, everything is good. Like you'll be fine. There'll be you don't have to do anything. Mm-hmm. But when we are in that disintegrated, not so good space, don't point it out.
Don't point it out.
Don't point it out. Let me figure it out for myself. Let me come to terms with it. Don't try to offer that. And that's just me.
Yeah.
That don't try to offer being like, oh, well, you should think about this. Don't tell me that. Yeah. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me.
Because you're just not in the place to receive it.
No.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful, Maile. And that's one of my biggest hopes with this podcast, honestly, is that folks, will begin, if they're not already, that they'll begin to look at the Enneagram as this like real source of compassion for themselves and for other folks. And so I think that's beautifully said. Like, if you're in what I heard from you, make sure that I'm clear on it. It's like, if I'm working or living with someone who I suspect is an 8 and I get this real action oriented and like, sort of like I'm going to make things happen and there's this real power and it's getting into a negative space. Like I'm hearing you say, the way to fix that is not to say you're going into a negative space. Like let the process, let it ride. So I appreciate you sharing that. Maile, I just want to thank you so much for sharing yourself so openly and freely today. Is there anything final that you'd like to share before we call it a go here?
8s are the best. What can I say?
There you go. 8s are the best.
8s are the best. What can I say? No, don't be afraid to delve into yourself and really be honest with yourself. That's if you truly want to do the Enneagram and do it correctly, you can't say, oh, I'm not going to think about it this way. You have to look at everything with objective lenses, and you can't hide. You have to be completely honest.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for your honesty. I thank you for your work. It is, it's a joy to know you, Maile. So thank you. Maybe you'd be up for a return visit in the future. We'll dig even a little deeper into all this stuff.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Right. Well, Maile, thank you so much. And we will see you again soon.
All right. Thank you.
All right. We hope you are taking away a new learning or insight today. Maybe about yourself, someone in your life, or both. If so, time well spent. And if you are ready to explore this work on a more personal level, I invite you to be in touch. Visit us on the web at forwardbound.com. That's FOURWARDBOUND.com. There you can learn more about our coaching and Enneagram education work and schedule yourself for a free of charge discovery call. Finally, we look forward to welcoming you back for another episode of Fourward Bound with the Enneagram very soon. Again, thanks for spending this time with us. Be well.